Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about The Flames of Cadiz by Mark Platt. This is the CD cover, the Big Finish cover, and obviously with all these CDs I got my own DVD cover, and that's very cool. Now before I begin, I just wanted to point out something on the actual CDs which I found pretty funny. Let me see. On the first disc, I don't know if you can see it, it says disc 1, right? And then on the second disc, it says disc 1. I just thought that was pretty funny. You can tell because it actually tells you which parts are on the disc. So it's like part 1, part 2, and it says part 3, part 4, but they both say disc 1. I just thought that was pretty funny. So this story is another historical story, which means there's no sci-fi elements apart from the Doctor and our crew. And this one is set during the Algos-Spanish War, which, for those who don't know, was a war between the Catholics and the Protestants. And specifically this one is about the battle between the Queen Elizabeth from England and King Philip II and the Third from Spain, and they are very cross with each other. This story is mainly set on the Spanish side. I have seen our TARDIS crew in Seville for most of the story, and it's a 4-part epic. The story starts off with the Doctor and our crew in Seville, and Barbara is very in a good mood in this story at the start of it. Because she loves Spain, she's been on there on holiday before. Ian explains it all away, and Susan can see in her excitement. And the Doctor, he doesn't know much about this time period in Earth's history, so Barbara has to teach him all of these, all their customs and stuff. So that was a very nice starting off point. Now the story then goes into a sort of darker place as we see a bunch of monks basically burning down some poor guy's house, and we learn that this house belonged to a paper maker, and he wasn't giving the Protestants any paper for free because, you know, it was his job, and he's not going to give them paper for free. So they burnt his house down and believed that he was dissing God, basically. And Ian, because he's so tough-headed, he gets involved and he tries to stop one of the guard men from basically beating up this poor guy who's upset that his house is burning down. So the guards then take Ian and this guy, Esben, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, in prison. Now this guy is played by Nabil El Abati. I probably butchered that name. I'll probably put a text at the bottom somewhere, so I do apologise. Now, in Britain, this guy is probably best known for his role as Gary in one episode of Only Fools and Horses, which, before I say anything, just go watch that episode of Only Fools and Horses. It's brilliant. But anyway, he is unrecognisable in this. I didn't know until looking it up that it was him. He is a brilliant actor, well worth checking him out. Here, his character, he's very nice. He's a bit paranoid all the time. You can see it in his you can hear it in his performance. Like he's always looking on the lower side of things, and it's up to Ian then to basically give him hope that the Spanish aren't going to win. And then it's revealed to Ian that this guy is actually a sort of spy who's ready to give information to the English to which port they're going to attack. Now, here it's mostly about, there's like 2 sets of stories at this first half. These the first 2 episodes. The story with Ian in prison with this guy, and that story is very nice. And you got like loads of character development between Ian, and he's talking about like his life and his picking sides in history, very well written. And then you've got the Doctor, Barbara, and Susan trying to make it like a scheme to get Ian out. Now, the Doctor goes in disguise and pretends to be a messenger from the Pope, and he tricks them to believing that Ian is actually a Spanish spy who is going to help Spain with information vital to defeat or defend themselves against the English. So the plan works very well. It's strange how when he does this, he goes to King Philip and he pretends he's like a messenger from the Pope. And I don't know, this bit I'm very iffy on because it's described here that the Doctor's very, not sarcastic, but he's very jokey and he's very like a prodigal at this time. Now, I don't know how to feel about that. I think if William Hartnell was in this, he would have done a more straight-faced to it, maybe shouting at a bunch of people. But here he's much more like a comical joker trying to fit in, which I guess kind of works. But I don't know. I can't see our first Doctor doing it. Maybe like a later Doctor. Maybe it fits into like a later Doctor story, but maybe for the first Doctor it doesn't really work here. Mark Platt does a fantastic job writing. I mean, it's Mark Platt. The guy is a legend. He's written some of the best audios for Doctor Who and written one of the best TV episodes, which we will get into. So, I don't know, I just thought it was really strange that this Doctor wasn't as portrayed as his Doctor. So it comes to the time of Ian's I think it's like a trial, where basically he's been put to death. And the Doctor points him out and is like, he's the guy, he's the one that needs to be freed. However, the king basically sees that the Doctor's out. And this is probably the first story in our marathon with this typical Doctor Who cliche of the Doctor being mistaken for a spy, which usually always happens later down the line in his life. But this is probably the first time, if I remember correctly, in our chronological order, and that this actually happens. So this is kind of a big moment in the Doctor's moment. The first time he's been mistaken for a spy. There you go. And the Doctor then gets kidnapped. However, he gets freed as Barbara and Susan, who've now befriended like a small ragtag crew of deserters, basically, use smoke bombs and free Ian and the Doctor. Now, this is what I really like about this story. It's very well paced because it doesn't get boring, because that seems like it's only the first two parts. It's only the first two parts that this sort of happens. This sort of small story of Ian being kidnapped and they got to rescue him. Then when you get to like the start of part 3, the story then shifts in direction as Esteban mentions that he is actually sending a message to Francis Drake, a famous historical soldier in Queen Elizabeth I's army, and is one of Ian's like heroes as a kid, as he describes. So the story kind of shifts from the prison story to Ian going with Esteban to go and meet his idol, and then the Doctor, because he thinks that they're going to try and change history, maybe by accident, maybe because Ian's like stupid, he has like his own little scheme in the background, and then him, Susan and Barbara have to really go after Ian just in case he messes up history. This then shift really keeps the interest of the story going, and this bit is probably my favourite part of the story. It is kind of out of character because it is like like he should know really that Ian should really know the dangers of what he's getting himself into. But Barbara does explain that after nearly being burnt and being tortured and being imprisoned, that she kind of feels like he needs like a break. And to meet one of his heroes, it's like, what's the point of time travel if you can't meet your heroes? I mean, this is Francis Drake, one of the most famous adventurers in English history. So how can Ian not go and meet him? Halfway through this story, so coming up to the cliffhanger of part 3, they try and send a signal to Sir Francis Drake's ship, but they didn't. They sort of they're not in it in time, and the Ian and Esteban get attacked by a sort of soldier, and the Doctor thinks that they've messed up history because the ship should have been arrived by now. However, Barbara explains that that doesn't actually happen yet. Ian has actually kept history intact, which then nervous the Doctor because we actually find out that his plan in the back was to tell the king that what Ian was doing, which could royally mess up time. So it's basically the Aztecs, but from the Doctor's perspective. Now this bit I thought could have been a lot better. It was kind of like a little subplot rather than its own thing. I don't mind it that much because this is basically Ian's story. But I thought this idea of the Doctor accidentally messing up with time when the companions weren't actually messing it up could have been its own story. And now we get to the really good bit, the bit where Ian meets his hero. And I love it because you think he's going to be this great gesture guy. It's so far in our chronological order, and we've always had our historical figures be what we imagined them, like Marco Polo being the great man that he was built up to be. We've got what's his name from the Transit of Venus? His name is on the tip of my tongue, sorry, but he was basically like the great man that history remembers him by. But here, Francis Drake is just a bastard. There's no way of putting it. He's very suspicious of Ian, and he's just like, he doesn't want to know anything about him, and he's like, basically chucks him out the door. And this really gets Ian down. However, the plan does work that Francis does go and attack Chadic? The Chadics. That's where the title comes from in history. Sir Francis Drake has to attack one of two ports, and he picks Cadiz, and that's one of the downfalls of the Spanish Armada during the Axon's Spanish War. So he does teach you a lot of history in this story, and you do feel like you've learned a bit of history whilst you're listening to this. That's not really like a strength or a complaint, it's just something to point out. There's a great moment where Ian basically discovers Francis Drake basically robbing people. He says in the name of the church, but Ian can clearly see that he's doing it because he's doing it for himself. He's just smuggling all these golds and jewelries for himself in the name of God. So then there's this moment where I think like the building or the ship or the house that they're in crashes on top of them, and Ian gets to choose whether he has to save Sir Francis Drake or not. And because Ian has now actually seen him for what he is, it's very great. He has to. You can see it in William Russell's performance. Obviously he has to save him because A, he's the good guy, B, it saves history, and C, Ian's not going just to let this guy die, even if none of the other points were valid. But it is great to see Ian kind of like, should I save him? Should I not? I mean, he is this villain, basically. He is scum. Also, I like how in this story there is no real bad guy in the war. I was worried first listening to this that it was going to pick the whole Spain with the baddies, English with the goodies. Because there's this whole thing at the start that, like, obviously Ian looked up to Sir Francis Drake, and he always picked the home team, as he says during the story. He never goes to away matches. But this story kind of shows him that battles are not always black and white. It's normally grey with a lot of bad on both sides if there's a war. So it's great to see Ian going through this small story arc. And that's as much as I can talk about this story. Mark Platt does a very great job here. It feels very short. If there's anything else, if there's only a real complaint I have, is that the music is sort of dull in some places, which is very odd, because I was praising the Masters of Luxor last episode, and the music was done by the same person, so that's very strange. But the music here is very, sometimes it doesn't fit. It has this like really quirky mystery music when nothing like that is ever never shown in the scene. So that's very, very bizarre. And that's The Flame of Chardek. Classic. I think you should go listen to it. Well listened to if you like historicals. I don't think if you don't like historicals it's going to change your mind. Like I said, there's no like alien baddies, there's no sci-fi conspiracy. It's just a nice little historical adventure. So if that's your thing, check it out. And if it's not, maybe this one will be the one that convinces you that they're good. You never know. This might be the one that changes your mind. There you go. So there you go. That's The Flames of Chardek. So I'll see you all next time for the next Big Finish audio drama in our series, where we have a returning foe in the next one. But who can they be? Is it the Daleks? Or is it something else by Terry Nation? I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon.